Okay, want to welcome in David McLay Kidd to the AmateurGolf.com podcast. David, thank you so much for your time joining us from snowy Bend, Oregon in January.
Yeah, no golf here today, that's for sure. I'm a stone's throw from Bandon Dunes, and there's golf played there every day. So if I get really sick of it, I can drive over the mountains and go tee it up over there.
And we also have our founder, Pete Lukowski, here as well, who has a long history and relationship with Bandon and with Sand Valley. And so he wanted to be here and be a part of this too. So Pete, welcome to maybe the third or fourth appearance on the podcast.
Yep, and I wouldn't miss this for the world. What a great opportunity. So the golf architect for the golfer is the ultimate connection.
Ha. Well, I hope I don't disappoint, Peter.
Well, I wanted to start, and I've listened to and watched you on, no laying up videos. You played Tethero with those guys a few years back. I listened to a 2017 interview you gave with Andy Johnson this morning, and he asked you, as Andy tends to do, a quirky question at the beginning of the podcast, what your New Year's resolution was, because it was a January recording, and your answer was you didn't really have a specific one, but you said you're working towards kind of continuing to build fun golf courses and helping people kind of enjoy the game through the design of your courses. And that was 7 years ago. And I know you're currently returning to a golf course, Tributary in Idaho, which was opened in 2009. I'm wondering if kind of going back to a golf course you built 8 years after you made that resolution with Andy on the podcast off the cuff. What's that experience been like going back to a golf course and working on one that you built kind of after Bandon and in the middle of a kind of a swell of work in 2009?
The first thing I often end up explaining to people when they say, "Oh, you're going back to Tributary to make changes and improvements. You're going back to the Castle course or Tethero or Macranish Dunes or any number of the courses that we've done over this period." And sometimes, there's this potential that they see that we screwed something up and now we're back fixing it. And I try and explain that, if we truly screwed it up, nobody would have us back. The project wouldn't be doing very well and there'd be no impetus. So the reality is that when we go back to these courses to make refinements, I would rather call them, it's usually on the heels of them being generally very successful and loved by the players and the ownership and the membership and whomever, because it's on the back of that, the heels of that we get the opportunity to make these refinements. So Tributary, originally built and called Huntsman Springs, has now enjoyed new ownership, and they are really investing in the property. The new members are joining, and it gave us a real opportunity to go back and review what we'd originally done and say, how do we refine it? How do we make it better? And some of it was just purely technical. The original construction hadn't taken account of the fact that the stones migrate from below and end up filling up all the bunkers. So there was an opportunity to improve the construction of the bunkers, which probably didn't really exist 15 or more years ago when Tributary originally opened. So we had that opportunity, but there was also the chance to go through the course and say, what does this bunker actually ask of the player? Is this preventing opportunity? Is it overly punishing a slightly wayward shot that's now out of position in any case? Let's take our understanding of the game now, 15 years on, and bring it to the golf course and decide what is appropriate and what isn't. And the reality was, Tributary, when originally built, had well in excess of 100 plus bunkers. I think it was near 150. And that was overkill. And so there were a number that could be removed because they just were never in play. Nobody was ever getting in them, or they were in a position that was preventing a strategic opportunity for a player to actually put a ball in play in that spot. So we took out probably a couple of dozen over the whole golf course. We moved a bunch, either slightly giving a bit more room or even moving them to create a tighter gap. So the whole project started out as an improvement to the bunker construction, but actually ended up being a complete review of the strategic design of the golf course. How can we make it more interesting for the members and their guests? And we had a wonderful contractor out of Seattle that did all of the works just this past fall. We were pretty amazed. We didn't think they'd get it all done, but they worked through short days and some cold weather, and they got the whole thing completely done. And the course will be back up and running this summer, and the members will barely notice. My guess is experience tells me that when we make changes to these courses that have been in play for decades, the members know every edge of every bunker until they don't. It's incredible that I can take a giant bunker out of the middle of a fairway, and for the first couple of the weeks of the season, they'll remember. And by a month in, they're like, what bunker? No, there was never a bunker here. Or vice versa. You add one and they're like, no, this has always been here. Like, pretty sure it wasn't. So it's shocking how short a golfer's memory really is.
What as far as taking some of those bunkers out and looking at the strategic value of shots or placement of bunkers or other hazards or just anything else in Tributary, was some of that equipment based? Are you, 2009 to 2023, 2024 now is, you look back at drivers from 2009, things have changed a lot. Is there anything in that, or are you looking at high handicappers, mid handicappers, trying to capture the whole gamut? What kind of process runs through getting rid of a bunker or taking something out?
I guess sort of staying in an overview and not getting completely granular with individual cases. There were bunkers that were now easily overcome by a modest golfer. A 10 handicap with a modern driver and the latest Pro V1 was 30 yards past it easily. And so in those cases, we felt that some of those bunkers were really just punishing slower swing speed golfers that weren't going to be threatening birdie anyway. So we were removing some of that to give a little more landing area, to allow someone a little more generous spot to be able to land a shorter club into. And then going into the greens, I think, and this, I don't know how much of this is true or imagined. I was 40 maybe when Tributary was first opened. I'm 56 now. I'm spinning the ball as fast or faster now than I might have been then. I can probably stop a 6-iron that I don't think I was able to stop 15 years ago. So in playing those second shots in, my partner Nick and I, and he's really good, so he's a +2. I'm currently a 9, so there's a big gap in our games. But even between us, I'm saying, hey, I always thought this green was best approached from the left because the green was, long and skinny. But now I can actually approach it from the hard right because I can stop the ball in such a short space that I'd actually rather be coming into this green along its widest axis because I can stop it on the short axis rather than going down the other side and using the length of the green to stop a running shot. This is nerdy stuff. So
no, it's great.
Hopefully the amateur golfers that are listening are following along. So that has become part of it. And then there's, adding on to that comment I made to Andy 7 years ago, I've had 7 years and a bunch of projects to try and really dig deep into what makes golf fun, where that playability thing goes. And where I'm at right now is I'm starting to play with the two. One of the things I used to say was that challenge and playability were not the scales of justice, right? you can build an extremely playable golf course that is still challenging. By example, Augusta National, right? The golf course is challenging by anybody's estimation. That looks like, I've never had the chance to play it, although walked it many times. That looks like a pretty challenging golf course. But it also looks eminently playable. It looks like I could make bogey after bogey after bogey 18 times without that much problem. The old course would be another example. You know, assuming it's not blowing 30 miles an hour, you can go out there and make bogeys 18 times. But shooting in the 60s, that takes some real effort. You got to be a really good golfer. So that's my point, that the scales of justice are not balanced by challenge and playability. And we can achieve both of them on any golf course. Mammoth Dunes would be a great example. Gamble Sands is another great example. An average guy having an average day can get around there and have a modicum of success with modest abilities. But a really good player still has to be able to hit quality golf shots to make putts. So all of this to say that was me 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. Where we are now, 7 years later, we are getting so deep in the weeds of this because it's starting to occur to me that there is some modicum of scales of justice. And where those scales come in are the difference between a low handicapper and a high handicapper and the stroke index, right? Because the low handicapper is disadvantaged because he's giving strokes. And if I allow a modest golfer who's already got a stroke the ability to really screw up and recover to par, that means that my low handicap golfer without that stroke is going to lose the hole.
Right.
Unless they do something exceptional. So the thing we're playing with now is as we layer upon layer of this fun and playability conundrum that we've been working through is how do we get it to be fair in a mano-a-mano situation where a low handicapper is giving strokes to a higher handicapper. And I guess this is brought right home because Nick and I play golf a lot. He's +2, I'm 9, right? So I'm getting half the holes I get a stroke on. And if half the holes I effectively make an error and then rescue back to par with a stroke, he loses almost every time.
Yeah, so it's a big gap that you're talking about there. And I don't mean to interject a Pete story here, but I tend to do that. I'll give you a little break for a second, David, and tell you. It is one of your courses at Mammoth Dunes, and I played it a year ago with a gentleman named Ben Corfey and his dad, and it was me and my son. And we hold a father-son tournament as part of our two-man links championship, which we started at Bandon, right? So 23 years of Bandon. Now we're at Sand Valley, and we're playing Mammoth Dunes. And Ben was a Division I golfer and has got his amateur status back, and he was going along pretty good. But the funny thing was, on the first hole, he was a plus. I think I was playing as a 3 and he was like a +6 or 7. And I remember saying to him, the difference between us is so great. Like whatever it was, I want to play a match with you. And I believe I was getting 10 or 12 strokes. And so I shot 73 and he shot 60. So at the last hole, when he holed out for eagle on 18 at Mammoth Dunes, I said, I think that's 13 under. And then we all realized we sighed and said it's a par 73. But he beat me in that match on the par 3. He topped a birdie. Is it like 15 or 16? And it was what I'm saying is it was a fair match at a course you designed. So what you're doing is working because he could go low, but I could go low.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that was meant to happen at Mammoth. Everybody loves Mammoth because of its generosity, but it can be very penal in places too if you find some of those nasty bunkers.
Well, I still think that the core tenet of playability is getting people off the tee. It's as simple as that. If you don't get everybody off the tee and into play some way, somehow, so that they can hit it again, the hole's kind of over. And that's where I don't really enjoy the US Open type setups where you're hitting into a 30-yard wide or less fairway. And if you miss it, you're done. You're dead. Most people don't have that. Even low handicappers don't have a driver that can get into a 30-yard gap hole after hole. And somewhere like Mammoth, you've got this big wide area to hit into, which takes away a lot of the intimidation. And so people generally start actually swinging with some degree of confidence, and that confidence breeds more accuracy. And so they start hitting it where they were aiming. So weird juxtaposition. You're hitting to a narrower gap because I gave you more room to hit it in.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that way. Yeah, it is. It's not a driving range, but it sometimes we groove our swings on the driving range probably for the same reason. So, I'll turn it back to Sean, but I wanted to interject that little story because it really goes in line with you playing against your partner and having that gap in handicap. And you should have a fair match. Right?
Well, the best match I played last year was against my good buddy Gary Fish, who was the founder and owner of Deschutes Brewery, if you like beer.
Oh, yeah.
And he and I played Tributary together, and I was off 7, he was off 6, and we were going at it, smiling but grinding, hole after hole. And we were absolutely loving it. I mean, the course was playing fantastic. It's always in great condition. And that course asks a lot off the tee. I don't know if either of you have played it, but there is a lot going on. There's a lot of undulation, bunkering, wetlands. There's 52 acres of wetlands. So virtually every hole has water somewhere flowing through it, on it, around it. So there's a lot of drama that plays out. By the 18th hole, I think we were both exhilarated and exhausted in the same breath. And we'd played great golf. And then finished all square on 18, and sad that the round was over. And for me, that's the measure of a great day on the golf course. And I didn't get beat, which was good.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you've got a place that you enjoy returning to. So I would guess that being David McLay Kidd is not bad because you can just visit your own courses and many others in your homeland or over here or in Hawaii. What's it like going to play? And when people realize who you are and say, "Oh, you're the guy that designed this thing."
I love going back to the stuff that I've done. I mean, at this point in my life, I have something like 30 plus golf courses that are in play. It's always wonderful to catch back up to the superintendent, director of golf, general manager, owner, if that's the case. It's the things that are funny are, I went to play Rolling Hills Country Club in LA a few weeks ago. And as often happens, the superintendent came out and I said, "Bob, what the hell are you thinking? The pin positions are insane." He goes, yeah, I knew you were coming. Like, you don't have to do that for me. I'm not the plus 6.
No,
could you stuck him right in the middle of the greens and made him a 1/4 inch bigger? I'd like that better.
It would have been
so
just fine.
Sometimes in my little world, I get to be like the Queen. They say that the Queen, when she was alive, never smelled anything other than fresh paint because they were constantly painting right in front of her. So I might get that a little bit like, boy, these greens are fast.
Yeah, and they are out there. I had the pleasure of playing there last Thursday with Callaway after their launch event for their new drivers and clubs, and gosh, I think those are the tightest fringes I've ever played in my life, to the point where I marked a ball and had to wonder, and is that a David McLay Kidd? I mean, obviously you do links golf, and there are roll ups and putts, and Bandon. We're not going to have greens guarded by heavy rough in the same way that we would at a U.S. Open course. But what about a place like Rolling Hills or Tributary or Laura Loma or any of the places you've done? Because even TPC Stonebrae that I've played, very tight fringes, which we call them closely mown areas. What is that? Is that something you like to do?
Well, what I like to do is get the ball to roll. The essence of golf is that it's not an aerial game, and the Scots never intended the golf ball to do nothing but fly through the air. It was always intended to fly through the air and then do something. And a good golfer is going to make some kind of prediction as to what that do something is. And it's only by creating tight fringes that you get that something to happen. So at Rolling Hills, and that's a good one that you brought up, you're kind of stuck using Bermuda grass from tee to almost green. Well, if you stick with Bermuda grass, no matter how good the superintendent, it doesn't really roll that well. And so the ball is kind of sticky. So in order to overcome that, we took the greens at Rolling Hills in a very fast bent grass, but then we took a slightly slower bent grass and we extended it all the way out to the fringes and all the way back down the fairway through the whole approach. So when you play a ball in, the run on the surrounds, the approaches, is pretty close to the same run that the greens have. So that a golfer can predict the release, predict the roll, which if we'd have used Bermuda grass would never have happened. Now, I'd love to tell you that we were the original thinkers of that, but we weren't, because Alistair Mackenzie did it at the Valley Club of Montecito, and he did it again at Royal Melbourne. So there are a number of courses that have followed that mold, but not in recent years. So we thought we'd reinvigorate that idea, and we brought it to Rolling Hills, and I think it worked really, really well.
Oh, it's amazing. It's a trademark, and it's exactly what you said. There's nothing worse than a course that's either soggy in front of the green, yet the green's firm, or it doesn't have any way to roll up, like some of the modern Bermuda, if you roll it all the way up there. And I actually mentioned Royal Melbourne, and I'm not a name dropper. I have played Royal Melbourne, okay? But one of the things there that I find amazing is that the bunkering goes right up to the green surface, and especially on some of the par threes where I've said the difference between that and Rolling Hills to me was that you've got a little bit of rough that I don't know if it's better for the golfer or not, because personally, I'd rather be in the bunker and then in that little section of rough you grow there.
I would love to replicate that Melbourne Sandbelt look, the Royal Melbourne being the most famous, but, Kingston Heath and Victoria and Metropolitan, they all have that very sort of flashed bunker look where it almost looks like they're scalloped into the greens rather than being adjacent to the greens. It's tough to do. It's tough to build that. I think what you really need is sand that's damn near like building sand, that's willing to, sit tight. If I'd have tried that at Bandon, the sand is kind of loose and it would have settled down. I couldn't have gotten it to stand up that stiff. So you need a very particular site to be able to create exactly that look. One day I'll find it, but I would love to take inspiration from those courses and build something that looks similar. We have a couple of things on the docket right now that may be capable of that, but until we're out there with a bulldozer and an excavator, we won't know for sure.
I didn't realize the technicalities required to do that, or in that case, it was done in the old days. But all I know is when you're playing a par three and you think you've hit the green and you watch it trundle into a bunker, it's everything we love about golf. It's pain and pleasure all in the same 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's the drama. I mean, I think the thing that we love in all of sports and golf is what we're talking about now is the drama that can play out. And that drama is so much more enthusing if the ball rolls. You think about all the holes that we love watching on TV, the 16th at Augusta National. It would never be as good if you didn't see that ball land on the green and then saw it trickle and you're saying to yourself, that could be in. And then it doesn't go in and you're like, okay, now let's see the next guy hit. And he lands a few inches to one side or other. And you're like, okay, that one could be in. And the drama plays out for what feels like minutes as the ball trickles. And yet, day in, day out on the tour, we watch Rory hit a 5-iron and the thing takes 2 hops and stops. And there's zero drama. It is drama-less. And I wish I were king and I would make the best in the world play the courses where the drama is going to play out the most. I want to see the 16th at Augusta everywhere. I want to see the ball roll. I want to see the drama. Whether it's fair or not, I'm a spectator and I'm paying my dollars to watch these guys. I want to see things happen. I want my heart in my mouth as I watch that ball move after it lands. And if it doesn't move after it lands, it's kind of binary. It's not that interesting. You watch the ball hit and you're like, okay, that's over. Take me to the next guy.
Yep.
That's a good little transition to what one of the places you're currently working on in Texas, outside of Austin, Laura Loma. And I know I kind of did a little bit of reading, but I'd love to hear what that project is like. You're kind of building it a little bit like Tributary for a community. So you've got regular golfers. You mentioned, members and guests at Tributary. Laura Loma is going to have the same kind of feel. What is that design process like when you're building it for someone who's going to be playing it every day, a couple times a week, versus the Bandons and the places where you want people to want to come back after playing it, and travel a long way to get there?
Well, can I just back up just a tiny bit and let you guys know I had never really been to Texas. I mean, I'd been to Houston International Airport, and that was pretty much it. I'd never really been to Texas. I certainly had never played any golf in Texas. So when these guys called me up and said, "Hey, would you be willing to look at a project outside of Austin?" I go on Google Earth. I don't really know a whole lot, but the first time I zoom in, comes up Austin Golf Club. I'm like, wait a minute. Wasn't that the first course Ben Crenshaw and Bill Kerr did? Like, if it's right next to that, then I think I'm probably in. I mean, if it was good enough for them, I'm probably in. And sure enough, I get out there. The two courses are literally a couple of drives and a wedge apart. So that was huge for me. Anywhere that, my contemporaries are or have been, I want to be too. I know that the sites are going to be good. I know that the caliber of golf and the golfer's IQ is probably high. And I know that the competition between the courses for which one people love the most is going to be right up there. And that's a fun spot to be in. I'm not really that enthused about working on even a great site out in, truly nowhere where no one's really paying any attention. Isn't as rewarding as being in the mix and having golfers like your listeners go see these places and play them and hopefully have fun and debate which ones they like best. So Laura Loma is right in the mix. Austin's booming. Austin Golf Club is right next door. It'll be the first thing I've ever done in that part of the world. So super excited about all of that. The site itself is right along the Pedernales River and the bottom end of Lake Travis. So it's got a lot of water's edge. I think we have 12 of the 18 holes are on the water's edge one way or another, which is, great golf next to water usually works quite well. So we have the basic ingredients to do something great. And the way that it's set up, the group that are developing this, some of them are ex-Discovery Land. One of the principals is ex-Augusta National. So they've got pretty high golf IQs. I'm not dealing with a home builder that says, do whatever you need to do so I can sell houses. They've been able to allow us to use probably the best land on the property golf. The homeowners are set back. The golf course, is not playing through corridors of real estate. The golf is sort of out on the water's edge, looking out across the Texas hill country. They're not sparing the horses. I mean, we're spending whatever needs to get spent to build something cool. I've got my A team down there. So the guys that are there right this second were in Nebraska last year, finishing off Grey Bull for the Dormy Network. Then they were up at Gamble Sands, building the second course up there. And now that whole crew is in Texas. So it is my A team. They're all plus handicappers that are there right now from a design and build perspective, if not a playing a golf perspective. So we got a good crew down there. We just hope the weather's kind.
We're there just kind of starting thinking about Texas and Texas golf, and what kind of things, is there anything you're trying to implement or that's part of the design that is, for lack of a better term, Texan or inspired by places nearby or Austin Country Club, or are you sticking to kind of David McLay Kidd golf, whatever that means?
Yeah, whatever that means. I'm not sure what. Texas is an interesting state golf-wise. It's a bit like Florida. The reputation that the state has is giant because of the players, not giant because of the golf courses.
Yeah.
It's an odd thing. It's the biggest state in the lower 48. You've got multiple US major champions. And yet, if you looked at a top 100 list, Wisconsin beats it hands down. So it's an interesting conundrum that there are not more great golf courses in the great state of Texas. So that makes it very interesting, what is possible. From my perspective, I would hope that we take inspiration from great sites, and this is a great site. So we've got these old live oaks everywhere that are hundreds of years old, from what I can tell. This cool, scrubby vegetation on the ground and wispy grasses. It's kind of a semi-arid environment, so hopefully relatively easy to find a ball hit way off into the rough. You got the Texas hill country that you're looking out across. So and beautiful rolling topography. It's not wild by any means. It's not sand dunes or anything, but it's softly rolling with wonderful views. So we have the basic ingredients for good golf and plenty of land. So I don't know. There's nothing tells me we can't build something that's really compelling from a golf perspective. And Texas needs a few more great golf courses. So we're enthused to get on with it and see what we can do in Texas. Maybe might be the only one we ever do in Texas.
What's it like trying to work with space or limited space, or having, you said you have a lot of space? Are there, would you rather have kind of a blank template that's wide open, or are you more comfortable having some parameters or something to kind of work within?
That's a good one. I guess if you took both ends of that spectrum, if you take something like the Graybill project that we did for the Dormy Network, the 1,800 acres, go wherever you want. I mean, it's like giving a writer a completely blank piece of paper and saying, I don't have any expectations. This could be a novel, it could be historical, it could be futuristic, whatever you want, write whatever you want, but I want a bestseller. And there's a degree of writer's block where you're like, holy shit, there's no limitation. I could do whatever I want. And you're kind of stuck because you don't know what step to take first. And then on the other hand, you can have a site like Rolling Hills in LA that Peter played, that's so constrained with so many constraints that there's very little wiggle room. And so you're just trying to figure out how to make it work. How do I figure out the puzzle pieces to get to a point where I have something workable? And Laura Loma sits probably in the middle of those two. We have a site that's sufficiently large enough to easily lay out 18 holes, but within that site, we've got this waterfront. We got these big gulches that cut in from the river. We got these beautiful giant live oaks. So there is a number of constraints, even within that large site, that you want to respect. And once you start respecting those constraints, the golf course kind of starts to lay itself out. And you come to at Laura Loma, we came to a relatively easy solution quite quickly because the constraints painted us into a solution where you're like, okay, well, that works. And I don't see any reason why it doesn't work. I mean, that looks like it's cool. We got a bunch of cool holes. We're on the water. We got sufficient land around it. Okay, we're good. Let's go. Now we can just take that foundation of a layout, and now we can layer upon layer all of the design, from basic strategic playing design all the way to the individual edge of a bunker or the roll in a green. And all that happens during the construction process over the many months to come. This project's a good year away from finishing. And in that year, we will make a million little decisions, and each one of those adds on to all these different layers that end up you guys walking through in minutes that took us weeks. It's kind of like making a movie. I often describe it that way, that if you're watching the latest movie, Marvel movie, and there's some amazing CGI sequence and it takes 30 seconds on screen and you're like, oh yeah, that was cool, and you don't even think about it and you're carrying on with the story. That's exactly what we're doing. We might have sweated weeks over something, the left side of a green, and you may not even hit the ball there, and moved on, and we're completely unaware of it. And so the effort that we're putting into this, hopefully, isn't. You're not completely aware that it happened, but you would be aware if it didn't happen. If it wasn't there, you'd be aware. And we don't want you to be aware. We want you to see it as this seamless thing where you're like, well, of course it's like that. It looks entirely in keeping and natural with everything else. But we may have taken considerable effort to get there.
Yeah, I'm sensing in these oak trees, I'm sensing there's going to be an integral oak tree, and I don't know if it's going to be alive or dead, because I'm thinking of places. One that you didn't do, the preserve in Carmel, where you have this oak that's dead, that's lining the 15th right side of the fairway, and it's in play. And I don't know if you would ever do that, but it's pretty cool to have an iconic structure like that. Would you consider that?
I definitely would consider it. The only thing about trees or any vegetation is they have a finite lifespan, and they have a horrible habit of disappearing long before I wanted them to. And suddenly I've got this hole that was fundamental around some tree or other, and then 5 years later it decides its time is up and it dies on me, and I'm like, oh, now this hole doesn't make any sense. So I'm always a little nervous. The second that Mammoth Dunes has a pine tree that's left of center, and when we were designing that hole, I kept saying to my guys, I'm cool with leaving the tree, but let's figure out how the hole still makes sense if and when that tree dies. So we think it through so that the tree is kind of an addition to the strategy, not the singular point of the strategy, because of the fact that it could blow over on any given day.
I have one, as you were talking about Laura Lohman, and I've heard that you use a basketball to kind of test slopes before you start growing grass, and that it reacts similarly to a golf ball in comparison to maybe other different sporting equipment, soccer ball or a softball or a baseball. Is that still something you do?
One of my mentors early in my career was a guy called Orrin Vincent, who was the founder of OB Sports. And Orrin was the real power behind Gamble Sands. He persuaded the ownership there to build that project. And I was out there back in 2008, 2009, something like that, and trying to roll a golf ball around on dirt that we'd shaped. And Orrin's like, I used to use a basketball. What? And he goes, yeah, I tried a soccer ball, I tried a volleyball, nothing quite rolled the same. Basketball is heavy enough with enough pressure that it kind of has its own momentum, and it once it starts rolling, it'll kind of keep rolling, where soccer ball won't. And sure as hell, he was right. We tried it, we monkeyed around with it. He was out there and gathered up all the kids' balls from the owners, and basketball, pumped up hard, worked great. You could just get it to start rolling, and it would actually leave a track in the sand on the green. And you could see a bit like the thing on TV where they show you where the guy's got to put it. It would leave that mark, and you'd be like, hey, that it dived left too hard. We don't want it to dive left that fast. We want the player to be able to make that putt around that shape. I'd call the bulldozer back and make little adjustments, pat it all back down again, roll the basketball. Like, oh yeah, that's perfect. That works good. So that was 15 years ago. And my guys now, I turn up on these projects at the point at which we're ready to start finalizing shaping. Sure as shit, they've got, there's a basketball. They're like, hey, we got the basketball. And here's the funny thing is we get to the end of these projects and we often say to the owners or the management, whoever, hey, do you want this basketball? And every time so far, they go, yeah, no, what the hell do we want that for? Like, you might want this thing in 20 or 30 or 40 years time. Somebody would be like, this was the basketball that they used to shape all the greens.
Yeah, good clubhouse memento.
Yeah. I had another one. This is an odd story, but there's a boot manufacturer here on the West Coast called Danner, and all the loggers wear them. And so I started wearing them when I was building Bandon, because that's what all the loggers were wearing. So I then go from Bandon to Hawaii, and I'm building the Nea. Have you played that one, Peter? I haven't played that one yet. You got to add that one to your list. And I built Nanea with this pair of Danner logger boots from Oregon. And I got to the end of the project and I said to the incoming general manager, I said, these boots are trash. They've been out here in the lava in Hawaii for 2 years. I'm probably going to chuck them, but maybe strangely enough, you want to throw them in a box somewhere, and in God knows how many years, they might be something that would be fun for the club to have. The club called me like a year ago. They were like, hey, do you have any mementos or anything? And I was like, funny enough, I had those boots, but they're gone.
All future projects, listen in.
Yeah.
Listen in.
Yeah.
The old pair of boots and the basketball might be worth putting in a cupboard in 100 years' time. They might be interesting to someone.
Well, these projects sound amazing. And PR agency, please, if you're listening, add Pete Lukowski and Sean Melia, Melia, to the list for grand opening preview, because we will go there and cover it. We have seriously, it's a great opportunity. We've been lucky enough to attend some of these type of events and to play a course with the architect talking about what's going on, and especially after having a preview this far in advance. This sounds like an amazing place. And I've enjoyed everywhere I've played, and I think we really wanted you to talk about these projects, but I don't think we'd be doing this podcast justice if we didn't talk about Bandon a little bit, because I feel like I know you. Every time I've stayed there in my 28 times, the phone, you pick it up for a shuttle and it said, hello, this is golf architect David McLay Kidd. And I mean, maybe you can fill in the rest of that message. You probably know it by heart. I forget what you say next.
I think,
But
right.
Do you remember?
Out on the wild, windswept dunes. I think I have it even written up on my on a poster over here. Golf as it was truly meant to be is how I finished it, and that was the original wake up call when the resort opened 25 years ago this year. And they've used it ever since. In fact, for a while, they were selling hats with the golf as it was meant to be written on the back of the hat. And that came from that wake-up call 25 years ago. I should have trademarked that somehow.
It might be. Yeah, it might be. Well, they've got, of course, Dream Golf. And for our company, we are a repository of information for the competitive game. So we really do the big picture, and we are really a membership-based site. But years ago when I was launching, and it's our 25th year, just like Bandon's celebrating 25 now. So I know how old that course is because I just got invited to the 25th year celebration. And it's just an incredible place. And for me, it's, I think it tells a story when you go through a life cycle and you realize people have been married on 16 green. People have buried their ashes on 16 green. I don't know if there's been any births out there, but it's a true life cycle course. Maybe I've seen pregnant women there, so you never know. But
maybe some puffins.
It could be. But you've designed a truly iconic course that people, we all debate which is our favorite at the resort because there's so many courses there. But I think I'd like to have you just talk a little bit about what the Kaiser relationship and designing Bandon sort of meant to your career and that piece of property where it's, kind of where it is in your heart.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, the first thing I'd say is I'm so often dragged into the conversation by passionate golfers about which one's the best. And as they argue it, I have to remind everyone, you don't have to pick. You get to play them all. It's fine. You can have a favorite and a least favorite, but you can't say this one's good and that one's bad. They're all great. Otherwise, none of us would be going. I mean, I have made many trips to Bandon where I didn't play my own course and I wasn't disappointed. The tee sheet's full all the time. So, yeah. Often I'm there at a moment's notice and I'm playing whatever course I can get on that doesn't, I'm going to be able to play before it gets dark. So that's the first thing I'd say. Obviously, Bandon for me was the beginning of my career. Really, there were a few things that I'd done before, but nothing meaningful. When I did Bandon, I'm the son of a Scottish greenkeeper. My childhood was spent around St Andrews and Carnoustie and Turnberry and Gleneagles and all these famous courses in Scotland. That was all I ever knew. So when I went to Bandon and Mike Kaiser gave me the nod to go ahead and build the first course, people look at it now and say, well, this was a seminal moment in golf architecture in America. This was the rebirth of links. This was that may be true. I'd love that to be true, but it wasn't what I was thinking. I was the son of a Scottish greenkeeper doing what I knew and only knew. If Mike Kaiser had said, hey, I want you to build a golf course that's bent grass with bluegrass fairways, cart paths, and lakes, he was talking to the wrong guy. I mean, I hadn't played 3 courses in my life that looked like that. I literally, I mean, I remember the year before I went to Bandon, I went to the Callaway facility in Southern California, and they were testing their new clubs. My dad and I were there. We're hitting these clubs, and my dad and I looked at each other and whispered and said, these clubs are terrible. And the guy came up and he said, well, do you like the clubs? And we were both like, well, we're not really fans. They wouldn't really work for us. And they were like, what's wrong? I mean, these are our new high trajectory clubs. Well, there you go, right there. We're like, that's the last thing we want. It's blowing 30 miles an hour. We want this thing to be here, not here. And so that was where my mind was at 30 years ago. I mean, I was looking, I wanted a driver to be 10 feet off the deck under the wind. I wanted to be able to punch a 7-iron that didn't make it above head height and stopping, rolling out. So Bandon was really an expression of what I knew to be true. And I would love to say that it was an expression of all the Scottish greenkeepers who'd influenced my childhood. I was really just painting out what they had expressed to me throughout my childhood. And I was really just their conduit. And it's only now that I have the skills to really articulate what I knew then to be just the basic facts. I knew that golf didn't have to be this algebraic formula. I knew that fairways didn't have to be flat. I knew that golfers should walk. I knew the ball should roll. I knew you didn't need 6 different types of turf and 6 different heights of cut to make golf courses interesting. I knew that they could be completely symbiotic with their landscape. It didn't need a bunch of Japanese flowering maple trees to make it pretty. And so all of these things I just fundamentally knew to be true. And Mike Kaiser knew that. And he just allowed me to just go ahead and simply lay the course out. I think for others, they're trying to force themselves to do something different. And that continues to be a challenge in America. We still see a lot of golf courses being built that are, the architect says, well, I really listen to the landscape. And then I go look at it and go, how many millions of tons of material got moved to create this? And we really looked after the environment. I'm like, what environment? There's nothing left. They obliterated it all. And then we really were concerned about the fun and playability. And I'm a single digit golfer and I can't break 100. And I think there's no fun and playability here. It's brutally hard. So I think that as an industry, we still have a ways to go. I still think that there's a lot that can be done to get the golf course architects, the superintendents, the management companies to understand what the average golfer sees as something being fun.
Yeah, and golf carts are a necessity at most facilities, but it's incredible that Bandon doesn't have cart paths. And when you fly a drone or a helicopter over Pebble Beach, you really see how much concrete is in that beautiful links course. And that's what you don't have at Bandon. And I think what you said is very humble. But I believe that both you and the Kaisers and everybody that was involved with him on picking the land and everything, you're responsible for the rebirth of links style and links golf all around the country, and for people wanting to even travel to the old sod to play the real thing.
Well, we live in very exciting times. Golf has not had this kind of resurgence in almost 100 years. When I first came to the States in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I would look at all of these courses being built and I'd scratch my head and think, what do these have to do with golf where I'm from? They don't look anything like it. They're very cookie cutter, just weren't that interesting. Today, if you're building a new golf course, you can build something that's pretty good and no one's going to pay attention. I mean, you have to be on your AAA game. I mean, the stuff that's being built is spectacular. My peer group, I visit most every course that my peers are building, and I wander around and marvel at the creativity and the subtlety of what they're doing. It's a wonderful time to be a golfer, especially a traveling golfer, to be able to enjoy all of this golf that's being built purely for the joy of the game. It's not being built to sell real estate or high-end memberships. I mean, there's a lot of golf being built that the focus is the best golf. Virtually every client I have, that's what they say. What does it take to build the best golf? And on that, the rest will follow. And I think that's something else that Mike Kaiser can take credit for. Developers have realized that if the golf's really good, all of the other things they want will happen regardless. If the golf's mediocre, they're going to be pushing the rock uphill from the very beginning.
Right. And, I don't even want to call Bandon not the real thing, because I think it's just as much a links course as anywhere. I've heard Colin Montgomery refer to some courses as links style because he wants to quickly correct people on what links is. Of course, proud Scott, but we've got to go back across to some of the courses you're either doing or have done there. And I've read about I'm not going to say it right, Macrahanish Dunes.
Good job.
Okay,
I think you nailed it
for a Californian.
Yeah.
And I've not played there. I'm planning on visiting this July, and I've heard that you didn't, and I don't know the reason, but there was a reason why you didn't move many of the dunes land there. So almost the extreme of architecture, what you described as the land needing to dictate the design. And maybe you could expound on that. That's on an island, right?
No, Macrahanish Dunes is on the mainland, but it's on a peninsula. So it's almost an island. I mean, it's one bridge away from being an island.
The long and winding road, and
the famous Beatles song, "The Long and Winding Road," is about driving that peninsula down the Mull of Kintyre, and it's right on the tip of it. And because of extreme environmental concerns, we were literally only allowed to build 18 putting surfaces, and that's all. So nothing else was touched. The tees, the fairways, the bunkering, it is all exactly as we found it. So if you don't like it, I think it's so untouched and natural that you're basically playing cross-country golf through dunes. And all I decided was where you start and where you finish. Other than that, it's pretty much untouched. And occasionally someone will say, well, you should have moved this and you should have moved that. And I say, well, Mother Nature wouldn't let me. So if you don't like it, find somewhere else to play.
So how much time did that take then relative to another course, from the perspective that you still had to make sure grass was growing, and you are obviously a greenskeeper's son, and you know what it means in extreme weather conditions to have to do that. So how did your time spent on a course like on the peninsula on Mac Dunes?
It didn't take very much time to build because we weren't allowed to build very much. We're just building greens. What took a lot of time was the research and the negotiation with the environmental control bodies to figure out, where are the most important parts of the site and how do we protect them in perpetuity. And yet, how can we build golf holes through that don't endanger those? And that took a couple of years of intense work from a whole raft of people. The actual building of it was relatively straightforward once we got that go-ahead. There's no irrigation in the fairways there. It is incredibly simple. So when it gets dry, it's dry. And there's only walking. You can't drive a car. You're walking only. There are little signposts telling you which way to go because it doesn't naturally, there's backtracking and climbing over dunes to get to the next tee. So it's an adventure. You're exploring like a little kid, exploring these sand dunes, trying to figure out where you can hit your next shot. If you're up for that, this is your cup of tea. If you want something where you don't have to think and you want to drive a car, you might hate it. So it's an acquired taste. I think for someone making that trek down the long and winding road, they wouldn't be disappointed. It would tick their boxes. I spoke to a chap only this morning in Scotland, the Lynx Diary, and they absolutely loved it. They thought it was the best thing they played last year. And I said, I can't really take much credit. The credit goes to the team that managed to get permission. We were just lucky enough to be the ones to float down a layout for 18 holes on top of land we couldn't otherwise touch.
Right. And now, other than driving the left-hand side of the road down the long and winding road, I'm doing it. I was already convinced before meeting you, David.
Oh, that it is. I've driven that road 1,000 times. It is absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. You'll be looking as you go down. You'll be looking out to your right to the islands that lay off the coast there, and there's just one island after another. Islay, Gia, Jura. They're all islands of my childhood. I spent most of my childhood on that coastline. So it's a very special place to me, and a place that I will no doubt find my, that's where I'll be when I'm dead and gone. That's in my will to be taken back there and planted along that coastline.
That's incredible. Yeah, I am so excited to be going. Well, we'll take that offline because I need a couple of suggestions. But yeah, I know that I'm not going to get San Diego weather in Scotland in July, but I'm looking forward to everything it can throw at me.
You might get January San Diego weather in July.
That's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
Well, it feels like circling back to your childhood is a good place to end, and you've been kind enough with your time, David. So we will we'll let you go. Thank you. Happy New Year, and we appreciate your time and your thoughts. And we would encourage everyone to go try to play. I've never played one of your courses, so it's something I have to do. Stuck up here in Boston. Got to do some traveling to get to them.
One corner of the world I haven't made it to yet. So if there's anybody in Boston that wants a cool golf course, give me a shout.
Yeah, we need them. Yep, yeah. We need them.
Yeah,
so,
well, thanks, guys.
All right.
Anytime. I hope you invite me back sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, David.
Thank you.